This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Your hosts are Seth Jacobson and Patrick Heiler.
Chapter 36, Among the Elders, and our symbol is the leaf, because we're in a steading. As Juin took them through the Ogier town, Rand saw that Loyal was growing more and more anxious. Loyal's ears were as stiff as his back. His eyes grew bigger every time he saw another Ogier looking at him, especially the women and girls, and a large number of them did seem to take notice of him. He looked as if he expected his own execution. The bearded Ogier gestured to wide steps leading down into a grassy mound that was bigger by far than any other. It was a hill, for all practical purposes, almost at the base of the great trees. Rand says, "You should wait outside if you're freaking out."
I thought that was very astute of Rand. I just want to say one thing about the leaf, is we saw this last time they encountered the Waygate, and it's the trefoil leaf on the Waygate itself.
Gotcha.
So I think it may be not just the steading, but also the...
But they also go to a Waygate at the end of this chapter?
Yeah, at the end of it. And that's sort of what they do here, is they have their second encounter with the Black Wind.
Yes, I will sit out here and I'll read. That's it. I will read.
And all the women are watching him.
And Loyal's sweating and staring at a book that he's not reading.
Uh-huh. Definitely, we get evidence that he's a cute Ogier. The women I think they're checking him out in the same way that they watch Galad practice swords. They're watching Loyal read. It's like, whew, that gets my eyebrows all twitchy.
Yeah, talented tree singer. I don't know what Ogier ladies are into, but apparently those things. Long eyebrows and singing.
I noticed there's 7 Ogier in the council that Rand approaches. Any significance to that number?
Not that I know of.
Yeah.
Except for, there's other things that are in 7s, like the Ajahs. 7's always kind of an important number in all literature.
7 and 13, it seems like Jordan likes to contrast the good luck and the bad luck with those two numbers.
It's a very biblical thing.
But we do see both of those numbers sort of occur over and over and over again. More so, I'd say, than other significant digits.
13 Forsaken.
13 is the maximum number of women in the circle.
Juin ushers them in to see the elders. And there's some pretty cool exchanges here. It's a pretty cool conversation. Except for a high-back chair where Varen sat facing the dais, the only furnishings were the heavy, vine-carved chairs of the elders. The Ogier woman in the middle of the dais sat in the chair raised a little higher than those of the others. 3 bearded men to her left in long, flaring coats, 3 women to her right in dresses like her own, embroidered in vines and flowers from neckline to hem. All had aged faces and pure white hair, even to the tufts of their ears, and an air of massive dignity. Not even Varen had the appearance of wisdom that was in the elders' huge eyes, nor Morghese in her crown of their authority, nor Moraine their calm serenity.
And that's just their age and wisdom and knowledge.
Does anyone know how old the Ogier elders are?
I thought 500 was the 500 to 600 was
really
the max age of Ogier.
I think the eldest Alar, eldest of Sofu.
Because I always thought you have to be 100, and 100 is 18 in our age, and then I just multiply sort of by 5. And I say 100 becomes 500, and that's about 100 years old. And they say it's been 20 generations since the breaking, but generations are always hard to figure out because, is a human generation, is that 20 years or is that 100 years?
Well, Ogier live forever, so that's not really forever metaphorically.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So that wouldn't make any sense, right? An Ogier generation would be about 100 some odd years.
That's what I was thinking.
A human generation is between 20 and 30 years.
Yeah.
30s are standard, but...
And if there's 20 generations since the breaking, that would mean there are 120, 130 years between generations.
Math checks out.
We did the math, folks.
I am Alar, the Ogier woman on the highest chair said when they had finally taken their places beside Varen, eldest of the elders of Steading Sofu. Varen has told us that you have great need to use the Waygate to recover the Horn of Valir from Dark Friends is a great need indeed, but we have allowed none to travel the ways in more than 100 years, neither us nor the elders of any other steading. Ingtar has a small tantrum again.
I think this is Ingtar dealing with compulsion. I think he's saying, I will find the horn. I must. Like, I think he is literally compelled to go after that horn.
If you will not permit us to use the waygate, ... He fell silent as Varen looked at him, but the scowl remained on his face. Be not so hasty, Shinaran.
And I think she's mistaking his hastiness for that like incessantness, which is not natural. But I think she's thinking it's just natural human hastiness, whereas I see it as like compulsion-driven obsession.
We don't have a lot of great evidence for compulsion. We just know that it could be there. We know that he was at the Dark Friends social. We know that other people were compelled to do certain things at certain times, or something like compulsion.
I was also thinking a little bit about the last chapter when we see Varen and Ingtar together, and Ingtar has that sort of stunned expression on his face.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible that Varen was somehow adding to the compulsion or altering the compulsion a little bit?
Right after the Portal Stone, Varen says like a couple of words and walks up to Ingtar, and he looks at her and says, I walk in the light. I swear it, or something like that. Mm-hmm. And she puts her hands on his face and heals him.
And I think that, because that's the first time he says, I walk in the light, I think that's when he truly makes his decision.
Maybe in his visions, we should probably save this for when this happens, but maybe in his visions, he betrays the party. Over and over, kills everyone, or...
I think he just sees that no matter what he does, walking in the shadow never helps.
Yeah.
And so he like converts back to walking in the light.
Good speculation. So the Ogier Elder Alar says, basically, the point of the next couple pages, to enter the ways is to risk not only death and madness, but perhaps your very souls. Rand says, we have seen Mashin Shin. Ingtar swears again that he'll follow the horn to Shale Ghul itself if need be. But Alar summons in this Ogier who's middle-aged, who...
His mind is gone.
I assume he was somewhere around middle-aged because of his beard length and color.
He said no one's gone through over 100 years.
I assume he was the last.
Yeah.
So the whole purpose of this is for them, they all have to, everyone in the party that wants to go in the way is the Ogier are going to make them look at him.
It's basically scared straight.
This is what will happen to you. This is what could happen to you. Understand the risk. And I thought it was interesting also that despite Rand saying, we have seen Mashin Shin, like we've been in there, we've done this, we've seen it, we know how horrifying it is, Alar says, bring Treyal, Alar commanded, and Juin, who had remained by the door, bowed and left. It is not enough, she told Varen, to hear what can happen. You must see it and know it in your heart. She's forcing them to think about their decision.
And I noticed he was a tree singer, which parallels with Loyal pretty well.
Trail was one of the last among us to go along the ways, Alar said softly. He came out as you see him. Will you touch him, Varen? Varen gave her a long look, then rose and strode toward Trail.
Well, and he must have been touched by Mashin Shin. He never fully escaped it. He just...
had his soul eaten.
Soul eaten, not his body.
Right.
You know, sometimes you're totally consumed. Sometimes, like, the Trollocs get, like, half embedded in stone or whatever. That's kind of crazy. Oh, no, that is traps. That's a trap. You're right. That's not...
There's some good fan theory out there that I like a lot, that Mashin Shin is a trap that got so tainted that it came alive.
I like that a lot.
It just wanders around trapping everything.
It just can't differentiate.
Yeah. He did not move as Varen laid her hands on his wide chest, not even a flicker of an eye to acknowledge her touch. With a sharp hiss, she jerked back, staring up at him, then whirled to face the elders. He is empty. This body lives, but there is nothing inside of it. Nothing. Every elder wore a look of unbearable sadness. Nothing, one of the elders to Alar's right repeated softly.
And I think in any society other than the Ogier society, he would have been killed or let die.
I mean,
but they can't do that ethically.
I feel like the Aiel would do it.
Oh, the Aiel would have done it in a heartbeat. The Borderlanders would have done it. The warrior societies would have no problem finishing off someone who was no longer there.
But he's alive, sort of.
No, he's not. He's dead. His body walks around, but he's dead.
I feel like surely there are different societies that would feel different about it, but a lot of them, wouldn't kill him.
I mean, I go back to just, basically in our society, when someone's brain dead, we will take them off a breathing machine and let them die.
Sometimes. Not everyone agrees with that. That's a big debate right now. Mm-hmm.
And the Ogier clearly fall on the side of that debate of keep the person alive no matter what.
Life is life. But, there's also, I think you were sort of alluding to this before, that there's just the act of killing for an Ogier would be sort of unthinkable. They'd have to do weird stuff. They would have to, for instance, lead the Ogier outside of the steading. They would have to bring him outside of it so that they could follow their own laws. There's no violence can be done inside of a steading.
Sure.
So even to do a mercy killing, they wouldn't be able to do it. They'd have to march him many miles. And then they would have to break more rules by killing him.
I mean, you think they could just feed him a poison? Black Tower him?
Maybe. But I think, I don't think that they would. Just philosophically, I don't think they would ever come to that conclusion. And even if there's some Ogier that would, Ogier bureaucracy takes so long that he would die before anyone made a decision.
Varen reveals they're looking for the Horn of Valir. The Ogier Council sort of tells them what's been going on. And the eldest says, I do not know whether it's worse news that it is in Darkfriend hands or that it has been found at all. I like that.
I like that too.
Because the fact that it's been found means the last battle is coming, and that's terrible news.
Yeah, it means the end of the world is coming anyway. And then they talk about Loyal.
And I like how all three of them stick up for Loyal.
Yeah, they all want him there. The elders bring up Loyal and say, we know that you have him with you. And of course, the boys, Rand in particular is the first to spring to Loyal's defense and say, oh, we need him. But I noticed that the elders didn't say, we're going to take him. They didn't imply anything. They said, you have with you a young Ogier, Loyal, son of Arendt, son of Halan, from steading Shangtai. He is far from his home. Yeah. That's it. That's all they said.
Well,
and they're like, no, don't take him away. But they never said that they were going to do that.
Because Loyal's been freaking out about it. So they've been sort of...
Yeah, Loyal thinks it might happen, but...
So they're they're just going on Loyal's version of events. But Loyal may be mistaken on how much they want to send him home.
Yeah.
But I don't think he is.
Alar says something else perceptive at the end of this, but you're right, the boys quickly come to his defense, and then at the end of that, Varen says, we do need him. Few any longer know the ways, and Loyal has studied them, so he will be important. But I'll read this part, Alar's response to what the humans are saying. Alar eyed them each in turn, then settled to a study of Rand. She looked as if she knew things. All the elders did, but she most of all. Varen says you are Ta'veren, she said at last, and I can feel it in you. That I can do so means that you must be very strongly Ta'veren indeed. Such talents ever run weakly in us, if at all. Have you drawn Loyal, son of Arendt, son of Halan, into Tamarl Island? The web the pattern weaves around you? Is her response.
I like that a lot.
She kind of disregards everything that they say and asks the most pressing question. And I felt when I read that what's left unsaid there is that if we were to say that we're taking Loyal back, would that have any effect? Would the pattern just take him back? Do we have it? I think she thinks that she may not have any control over that situation.
That if she tries to take him back, something will happen that will prevent it?
Yeah. That should they come to that decision, it is likely that they'll be undermined by the pattern itself.
I noticed that just her ability to sense that he's Ta'veren I think we speculated before that all Ogier had a little bit of that sense in them.
Yeah.
But she says here that such talents run weakly in us. And I was just wondering if that meant that Ogier have less of is she saying us, like Ogier have less of the ability to detect ta'veren? We don't have that talent as much?
Well, getting to your question, I don't know. Such talents. Well, talents is capitalized. So I think that what she's saying is that it's like the human talent.
And Ogier don't get it as much.
Or weekly, whatever that means.
Yeah, it's not frequent.
No.
So that's weird because like all the people we see have the ability to see ta'veren, pretty much see them like blazing.
I can only think of 2. Is there one more?
3.
3?
Loghain,
Swan.
Nicola. And they all see pretty much really clearly. It's not like a weak talent. It's just like
a talent,
a rare talent. Whereas in the Ogier, it seems to be like even if they have it, it's like barely even usable.
So I suspect would Nicola look at Rand, Matt, and Perrin, she would just see a giant blinding blue light because they're all ta'veren. But Alar says she only feels it in Rand. She doesn't mention the other 2.
Well, she says it when she's talking to Rand. I can feel it in you. And she's looking at him in particular.
I shouldn't read too much into that. She just because she doesn't say it doesn't mean she didn't feel it. That
Sure.
all 3 are ta'veren.
Because she can only feel it weakly, Rand might be the only one who's strongly enough ta'veren that she can feel him. And the other 2 are slightly less ta'veren at this point.
Your friend, Alar said. He is young by our way of thinking. You are young too, but ta'veren. You will look after him. And when the weaving is done, you will see that he comes safely home to steading Shangtai. I will, he told her. It had the feeling of a commitment, the swearing of an oath. Then we will go to the Waygate.
It seems like he fulfills that oath.
He does, and I wonder again what Alar was doing there. She seems really perceptive and smart. She just made the strongest ta'veren ever agree to essentially
protect Loyal.
Yeah, and bring him back to
Yeah.
setting Shangtai specifically.
Not that he necessarily has a lot of control over his ta'verenness.
Not a ton, but she makes him say that he makes him agree, and before she says, all right, then I'll take you to the Waygate.
Definitely a bargain.
Yeah, a little bit.
Thus the bargain is made.
When they come back out of the giant room, Loyal asks about the elders and if they said anything about me. She told Rand to take care of you, Matt told Loyal solemnly as they followed, and see that you got home safely as a babe. I don't see why you can't stay here and get married. I think this is Matt always urging people to not rush off into battle. Like, if you can stay here and drink.
Oh, so I think he's joshing him a little bit. He knows he doesn't want to get married. He's like, I don't see why you can't stay here and get married. Wouldn't that be fun? Because there's a lot of like,
Maybe.
The next page or two, they're all giving each other a bit of a hard time and like poking fun at each other. Matt's chuckling under his breath as he says it.
Maybe. She said he could come with us. Rand glared at Matt, which made Matt chortle under his breath. Oh yeah, it sounded odd coming from that drawn face. Loyal was twirling the stem of a true heart blossom between his fingers. Did you go picking flowers? Rand asked. Aerith gave it to me. Loyal watched the yellow petals spin. She really is very pretty, even if Matt does not see it. He takes the flower that Aerith gave him and presses it into a book, and we see this flower appear a few more times throughout the series. He carries it around through everything. Does anybody remember what happens with the flower? He keeps it?
Yeah, it's just something to remind him of Aerith and how cute she is. Also, just consider the symbolism of Loyal tucking the thing she gives him into his most prized possessions.
A book.
A book. Especially considering he just lost most of his books in a fire.
True. As he returned the book to his pocket, that is, he murmured to himself, barely loud enough for Rand to hear, and she said I was handsome, too. Matt let out a wheeze and doubled over, staggering along, clutching his sides, and Loyal's cheeks colored. Well, she said it. I didn't.
And that's just, again, just a couple of buddies like, she said I was pretty. You ugly bastard.
Perrin rapped Matt smartly on the top of his head with his knuckles. Nobody ever said Matt was handsome. He's just jealous.
Uh-huh.
That's not true, Matt said, straightening abruptly. Marissa Allen thinks I'm handsome. She told me so more than once. Is Marissa pretty? Loyal asked. No, she has a face like a goat, Perrin said blandly. Matt choked. Rand grinned in spite of himself. Marissa was almost as pretty as a queen.
I just love the three of them together. This is a scene that really makes me wish they'd had a chance to reunite before the series ended and just like had given each other a bit of a hard time. I mean, we get a little bit of that with Rand and Matt when they do the like competition, and one of them's like, yeah, well, I rescued Moraine. Matt says that. But I really wish that all three of them had been there as part of that sort of one-upsmanship.
Would be a cool scene.
So they're walking out of the steading towards the Waygate, which of course is outside of the steading.
Being led by the Ogier.
Mm-hmm.
By the Ogier, at least Alar is there. I don't know about all the elders.
Juon is there.
Rand notes that they have to walk a ways because the ways had to be built at least partially using the one power, so they can never be made inside of a steading.
Mm-hmm. They're always right on the border.
Alar led them past a tall oak, and there, in a small clearing, stood the high slab of the Waygate, the front of it delicately worked in tightly woven lines and leaves from 100 different plants. Around the edge of the clearing, the Ogier had built a low stone coping that seemed as if it had grown there, suggesting a circle of roots. The look of it made Rand feel uncomfortable. It took him a moment to realize that the roots suggested were those of bramble and briar, burning leaf and itch oak, which I imagine are pretty much poison ivy and poison oak.
Yeah.
That's the Ogier's sign not to go here.
Yeah. But it's all made out of stone, so it's not real plants.
Yeah.
It's carved stone. He didn't really notice when Sidene came back. It was just sort of part of him. Did you make anything out of that? Because like he felt something lost as soon, there's that shiver and the feel of something lost when he passes into the steading, but he didn't really seem to notice the moment he passed outside of it.
It says, there's nothing to indicate they had crossed the boundary of the steading. Then he realized there was a difference. The sense of something lost that he had felt since entering the steading was gone. That gave him another sort of chill. Sidene was there again, waiting.
But I feel like that's something he noticed like a while after they'd already been outside the steading. That wasn't like the moment they passed out.
It doesn't really say how far out they are.
Fair enough.
But there isn't like the cold sensation. Nobody
seems to give a shiver.
Yeah, when they're leaving.
Well, it says only Ingtar and the Aes Sedai remain calm. Varen remains calm because she just always looks calm, even if she isn't. I was wondering, why is Ingtar calm here? Is it just that because they're making progress towards the Horn, he's able to like settle down a little bit because he's moving towards it?
Has he accepted that he's going to sacrifice himself for the light, so he's not afraid to die anymore?
That's after.
Shit, that's later.
Yeah, that's later.
That's in a chapter. I don't know. I guess, yeah, he's just resolute. He knows he's going towards the Horn and better for it.
I imagine the compulsion means like you have to follow the Horn, and so as long as he's not following the Horn, he's like has this frantic, I have to get up and go follow the Horn.
He's not being twitchy.
Yeah, but as soon as he's like on that path, he's able to just settle down and not fight the compulsion anymore.
And maybe artificially soothed by it in such a way that he's not feeling jittery about entering the ways in the way that everyone else is.
I'm nodding.
Varen plucked the Avendasora leaf, and Rand leaned forward intently. He knew an urge to assume the void, to be where he could reach Sidene if he needed to. The greenery carved across the Waygate stirred, in an unfelt breeze, leaves fluttering as a gap opened, down the center of the mass, and the two halves began to swing open. Rand stared at the first crack. There was no dull, silvery reflection behind it, only blackness blacker than pitch. "Close it," he shouted. "The black wind! Close it!" Varen took one startled look and thrust the three-pointed leaf back in among all the varied leaves already there. It stayed when she took her hand away, and back toward the coping. As soon as the Avendasora leaf was back in its place, the Waygate immediately began to close. The crack disappeared, vines and leaves merging, hiding the blackness of Ma Shin, and the Waygate was only stone again, if stone carved in a nearer semblance of life than seemed possible.
That's just a cool description. Varen starts to open it up, and Rand's like looking for black wind. He like thinks it's going to be there, and sure enough, he sees just that bit of black, and is like, "Close it!"
A couple of things related to the Waygates are some of my favorite images in the series. The stone coming alive and You pull the leaf away and the stone is rustled by an unfelt wind. It's super cool. And then walking in the ways themselves, the impossible angles. And
I also like the going into the mirrored version of yourself in the silver.
yeah,
when you pass through that silver.
that's weird.
The Neverending Story, there's a scene where Atreyu passes through a mirror. He sees himself in the mirror and it turns into Sebastian. And then he like walks through it and walks through his own image. That very much reminds me of passing into the ways. Sort of what I visualize whenever there's a description of one of the characters walking into it.
I'm nodding. I always kind of imagine, this is a little silly, like the mirror in the Matrix when Neo touches it.
Oh yeah,
and
a little bit like that.
Flexes, but of course it doesn't then cover your body and go down your throat.
Right.
That's not how it works. Liquid almost.
Yeah. I don't think the surface would flex. I imagine it would just part around you.
Yeah, probably.
Probably
more like
sheet of glass.
Alar says, Therein, assuredly you cannot use this way gate, and however great your need, I cannot say I am sorry. The ways belong to the shadow now.
It's pretty much true.
I thought that was a great little foreshadowing because the forces of the light don't use the ways at all after this.
Oh, Perrin does. That's right. He goes back to the Two Rivers.
Ah, darn.
Ways.
Well,
Yeah.
still, he's the only one out of, and we know that Trollocs are moved through the ways through the rest of the series.
I notice here, Varen Note is figuring out that it's following Rand. She gave Rand a sidelong glance that made him jump. I wonder it being here. First in Kyrian, now here. I wonder. Looking at Rand.
She's already starting to figure it out.
Oh, yeah. And then here, Rand frowned at the Waygate. Could it be following me? There were too many questions. Had Fane somehow ordered the Black Wind? Varen said it could not be done. And why would Fane demand that he follow, then try and stop him? So I wanted to talk about that because I think that what's going on is Fane isn't consciously commanding the wind to follow Rand.
Right. We've talked about this a couple times in previous episodes, but I don't mind talking about it again.
I just wanted to say, like, our theory fits here. That, like, that would fit where, like, Fane, that compulsion got passed on to the Black Wind.
Varen's thinking is right, and so is Rand's. They just don't understand what's happened, which is that Fane, who's been touched by the Dark One and Mordeth and the powers of Shadar Logoth, came into contact with the Black Wind and rubbed off on it. So now the Black Wind has some of Fane's essence.
Soul compulsion,
right.
Yeah.
His distilled essence that Ishmael took out of him and then put back in with new things, one of which was find Rand al'Thor. The next thing I have is the Ingtar's dialogue.
Now that they're not in direct pursuit of the horn, he's all of a sudden, he's no longer calm and collected. He's frantic and argumentative.
We're done for here, Ingtar announced. Varen said I followed you here against my better judgment, but I can no longer follow. I mean to return to Cairhien. Barthanas can tell me where the Dark Friends went, and I somehow will make him do it. Of course, Barthanas is dead, but nobody here knows that. Barthanas is already dead, but Ingtar is essentially threatening to go to Cairhien, capture the most powerful man in it, and torture information out of him. That's what he's saying he's going to do.
Yep.
That's insane.
That's compulsion.
He could never, with 20 soldiers, get out of here. Fane went to Toman Head, Rand said wearily, and where he went, that's where the horn is, and the dagger. And then Varen says, shortly after, well, whichever way gate we try to use, Varen said absently, I fear we will find Mashin Shin waiting.
And that's because she knows it's going to follow Rand.
Alar looked at her questioningly, but the Aes Sedai said no more.
She doesn't want to tell people why, but she knows.
Yeah, she strongly suspects, I think, already that Mashin Shin will go wherever Rand is, so Rand cannot enter the ways.
They're all sitting there going, what do we do now? And Huron comes up with a great idea.
What we need is one of those portal stones.
And everyone like looks at him and like slaps their forehead. Like,
what you suggest might be possible, Sniffer, but as well to open this waygate again and find Mashin Shin gone as hope to find a portal stone. But luckily, Alar knows where there's one. Within a short walking distance.
It seems convenient. They've got a portal stone, a waygate, a steading.
What was Varen's line that I liked and kept repeating? How providential.
The wheel provides. She just keeps looking at Rand like, things just keep working out for you, don't they? And right now, what he needs is a way to get to Tome and Head, so Matt doesn't die.
Alar says, I don't understand what you think you're going to do. The portal stones haven't been used since the Age of Legends. And Varen gives an Aes Sedai truth, which is, the Brown Naja knows many things, Varen said dryly, and I know how the stones may be used. Which she has, has read enough to, in theory, a portal stone might be used like this. That's what she's saying. She's never used one, never tried to use one.
Oh, and she can't. And no Aes Sedai, I think, living has the ability, has the power to get through one of those.
I think the only people we see use them are Rand and Lanfear. I mean, she's supposed to be one of the most powerful female channelers ever. More powerful than Nynaeve. Eldest Alar nods. Truly, there are wonders in the White Tower of which we do not dream. But if you can use a portal stone, there is no need for you to ride to Kinslayer's dagger. There is a stone not far from where we stand. The wheel weaves as the wheel wills, and the pattern provides what is needful. The absent looked dropped from Varen's face altogether. Take us to it, she said briskly. We have lost more than enough time already. How providential.
So you're fully moved in since the last time we talked?
Yeah.
Patrick is now officially
living above
the studio.
So I can now be less poor, but still poor.
I think we have to set the goal of pay our rent on the Discord and just put our monthly rent up on there or on the Patreon page.
Sure. Pay for our recording studio.
Pay for our recording studio space and our rent.
We just happen to live in it.
Yeah, and of course, instead of getting anything done, we spent, last night playing Diablo 2 together for hours?
Yeah, well, whatever. Was that hours? Probably was.
Yeah, it was definitely hours.
Couple of really good chapters.
Oh, I'm super excited about these chapters.
I guess the Flicker chapter.
Yeah.
This one is just kind of the walk up to
it. It's a good boys hanging out together relationship chapter. It's like we sort of get to see the interaction between the three friends with Loyal in there as well, and how they're all sort of giving each other a hard time and joking around. I like that a lot. Sort of a relationship building chapter.
This is one of those things, I should probably wait till we get there, but do you think that the flower Loyal gets from Aerith he keeps for the rest of the series?
Yeah. I think he pulls it out later a couple of times.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It makes other appearances.
I don't remember that. But
I think Rand may see it once and be like, he's complaining about getting married, but he seems to be holding on to that flower. Yeah, he puts it in his book and presses it, and he just has a pressed flower in there for the rest of the time. Before they go to the
Waygate.
Yeah. I think he may have it when they get married.
I want to believe.
You have been watching X-Files.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?